Welcome back to the Beyond Practice podcast. I'm Taylor Grant, and this is episode 3, Clarity and Chaos.
And I'm Casey Bishop.
Casey, you ready to dive into some leadership strategies for navigating change?
Absolutely, Taylor. And a huge shout out to Stephen Sunkwa.
Stephen, we couldn't do it without you. So today, we're tackling those moments when things get a little, well, chaotic.
Oh, like a natural disaster.
Exactly, like a natural disaster, and that's where the DACI and RASCI models come in.
It's like having that incident command system already in place so everybody knows exactly what to do.
I love it. So let's unpack DACI first, which stands for Driver, Approver, Contributors, and Informed.
The driver is your point person, kind of like a project manager.
Okay, so in our disaster scenario, that might be the lead coordinator who assesses the damage, figures out what resources are needed, and kind of proposes a plan.
Spot on. Then you've got the approver, the person with the final say.
So that would be the incident commander, right?
Absolutely.
Makes sense. Now, what about contributors? Where do they fit in?
Contributors are your subject matter experts.
So in a disaster, think of the engineers assessing structural damage, medical teams, or maybe logistics experts coordinating supplies.
Exactly. And finally, we have the informed, those who need to be kept in the loop.
Like keeping the public informed or updating other agencies.
Exactly. It's all about transparency, making sure everyone knows what's going on.
So DACI is all about bringing order to the chaos.
Precisely. Now, let's shift gears a bit and explore RASCI, which stands for Responsible, Accountable, Support, Consulted, and Informed.
Okay, RASCI. So how does that differ from DACI?
RASCI has one key distinction: the support role.
Interesting. So break that down for me.
Okay, so the responsible person, they're still the ones doing the work, making things happen.
And the accountable person is still the decision maker.
You got it.
But now you're bringing in the support role.
Imagine this. The responsible person, they might hit a roadblock, need some extra resources, some expertise.
So in a disaster, this might be the teams providing logistical support, like delivering supplies or coordinating transportation.
Exactly. Or it could be the technical experts, providing guidance.
Okay, so the support role ensures the responsible person has what they need.
Precisely.
Okay, and then consulted and informed remain similar to their roles in DACI.
Exactly.
So both DACI and RASCI bring structure and clarity, but RASCI adds that extra layer of support.
You nailed it.
So we've got these two frameworks, but how do you know which one's right for your team?
That's a great question. It really depends on what kind of decision you're making, how complex the project is.
So when would you typically opt for DACI?
DACI is great for those everyday decisions.
So maybe approving a budget or implementing a small process change.
Exactly.
Now, when would RASCI be a better fit?
When you're dealing with, more complex projects.
Like launching a new product line or responding to a major disaster.
You got it.
So both are useful, but
Right.
RASCI provides that extra support.
Precisely. It's all about setting your team up for success.
And that's the beauty of these frameworks. They're a roadmap.
Absolutely. And the best part is you can customize them.
That's a good point. It's not about rigidly following rules, but using these as a foundation.
Exactly. Think about your decision-making culture, how your organization works, and the types of decisions you face. And, it's okay to experiment.
Right. It's about finding what works best for you and your team.
Absolutely.
So now that we've got a handle on the basics of DACI and RASCI, let's dive a little deeper.
It sounds good to me.
Let's kick things off with DACI. What are some of the key advantages that stand out to you?
Well, for one, DACI promotes clarity.
Yeah, it's like everyone knows their place, no more stepping on each other's toes.
Exactly. And this clarity leads to accountability.
And accountability leads to a more engaged team.
Absolutely. DACI also encourages collaboration.
So you get different perspectives, better decisions.
Exactly. Now, of course, no framework is perfect.
Right.
One challenge with DACI is it can feel rigid if it's not implemented well.
So it's a tool, not a rule book.
Exactly. It's about balance, structure and flexibility.
So leadership needs to champion this.
Absolutely. They need to be mindful of how it's being implemented.
It sounds like communication and buy-in are key.
Exactly. People need to understand the value.
Makes sense. Now let's shift our focus to RASCI. What advantages stand out to you there?
Well, as we mentioned earlier, the support role can be incredibly valuable.
It's like a safety net.
Exactly. It can be very helpful when things get complex.
And I imagine this being especially helpful in a disaster response scenario.
Absolutely. In a high-stakes situation like that, having that dedicated support can be a game changer.
So RASCI provides that extra layer of support, and everyone has what they need,
Precisely.
which can lead to a more confident team.
Absolutely. It's about creating a culture of support.
Now, of course, RASCI also has its potential challenges.
One challenge is that it can lead to confusion if roles aren't clearly defined from the beginning.
I see. Having that extra role could add complexity if it's not managed well.
That's a valid concern. Clear communication is essential.
So documentation is key,
Absolutely.
and it's not a set it, forget it thing.
Another potential challenge is people over-relying on the support role.
Right. We don't want to create dependency.
Exactly.
So it's about striking a balance between providing support and encouraging ownership.
Absolutely. And that's where leadership comes in again.
So it's not just about picking the right framework, it's about implementing it well.
Exactly.
Well said. Okay, let's take a break there and we'll come back in the next segment.
Sounds good to me.
Welcome back to the Beyond Practice podcast. We're diving deeper into DACI and RASCI, and now it's time to get practical.
I love it. Let's bring these concepts to life.
All right, imagine a nonprofit launching a new community outreach program. This is where DACI and RASCI can be really valuable.
Great example. Let's start with DACI. How would you apply this, Taylor?
Okay, first we need to identify the driver, likely the program manager or someone in a similar role.
Right. They gather information, figure out needs, and ultimately recommend a plan.
Next, the approver. Maybe the executive director or a board member.
They look at it strategically. Does it align with our mission? Do we have the resources?
Exactly. Now for contributors, we want diverse stakeholders. Program staff, community leaders, volunteers.
People with lived experience.
Absolutely. Their insights are so important. And finally, the informed. Other staff, donors, partners.
Keeping everyone in the loop.
Precisely. Now, let's see how RASCI works here.
Okay. The responsible person is still the program manager, like in DCI.
Right. They're leading the charge, making it happen.
The accountable person remains the same.
But now we have support. The program manager might need support from different departments.
Like the development team for funding.
Exactly. Or communications for outreach materials.
Or administrative staff for logistics.
Exactly. It frees up the program manager.
So they can focus on the big picture.
Precisely. And consulted and informed are similar to DCI.
So in this case, both frameworks could be valuable.
Yeah, exactly. They're just guides. You customize them.
It's about being flexible.
Now, let's talk about how these relate to organizational culture. You're right, it's not one size fits all.
For example, in a top-down organization, DSCI might fit naturally.
But in a more collaborative organization, RASCI might be better.
Precisely. It's about finding the right fit.
So, before implementing either, you need to assess your culture.
Exactly. And you might use both for different situations.
Now, leadership's role is crucial here.
Absolutely. Leaders need to be champions.
They need to walk the talk.
Exactly. They need to show commitment, be transparent.
It's about shared understanding.
Now, implementing these isn't always easy. What challenges might leaders face?
Well, you're likely to encounter resistance to change.
Exactly. Some might feel threatened or just skeptical.
So leaders need to be prepared for that.
Absolutely. Communication is key. Be patient, persistent.
It's about bringing people on board.
And sometimes there's confusion, not just resistance.
That's where clear communication, documentation, and training come in.
Exactly. Be open to feedback, make adjustments.
It's about finding what works.
Now, some practical tips for success. First, these frameworks shouldn't exist in a vacuum.
They need to be part of your existing systems.
That's a great point. Integrate them into how you already work.
So use them in your project plans, team meetings.
Exactly. Make them part of your daily work.
Now, specific tips for DCI. Clearly define those roles.
Exactly. Document them clearly.
And we could avoid confusion.
Another tip, choose the right driver.
What qualities should we look for?
Someone organized, proactive, a good communicator.
A critical thinker.
Exactly. And ensure the approver has the authority.
They need to provide clear feedback.
Exactly. Now, for RASCI, be specific about the support role.
To avoid confusion.
Exactly. Talk to the responsible person and the support team. What support is needed? What are the expectations?
So setting those clear expectations is key.
Exactly. Check in regularly. Make adjustments if needed.
Flexibility and communication.
Absolutely. And make sure the support role is empowering, not creating dependency.
It's a balance.
Exactly. That's where good leadership is crucial.
So, communication, trust, and clear boundaries are key for RASCI.
Absolutely. And remember, these are living frameworks. They can change.
What do you mean by that?
Well, as your team changes, your projects change, you might need to adjust them.
So, be flexible, adapt.
Exactly. Don't be afraid to experiment.
The goal is to find what works best.
Well said. Now, let's discuss common pitfalls.
Okay, what can trip people up?
One is not getting buy-in.
Right, it can't feel like a top-down mandate.
Exactly. So communicate, be transparent.
Show them how it works, make it relevant.
Another pitfall is using the framework as a weapon,
What do you mean?
using it to blame others or avoid accountability.
Not for collaboration.
Exactly. It's about working together.
Another one is too many accountable roles.
Right. You need one clear owner.
To streamline things.
Exactly. And it avoids diffuse responsibility.
So be careful who you make accountable.
Now, a RASI-specific pitfall, mismanaging the support role.
Okay, what should we watch for?
The support team can get overwhelmed.
Especially with complex projects.
Exactly. Have clear processes for requests. Be realistic about their capacity.
And avoid the support team getting too involved in decisions.
Right. They're there to assist, not decide.
So boundaries are important.
Absolutely. Now let's talk about reviewing these frameworks.
That's a great point. We can't just implement and forget about them.
Absolutely. They're not static.
How often should we review?
It depends, but at least once a year is good.
What should that look like?
Gather feedback, analyze data, identify areas to improve.
Honestly, assess what's working.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to experiment. Try different things.
It's about finding what works best.
Absolutely. Be open, willing to learn, and continuously improve.
Now, before we wrap up, let's talk about the human element.
I love that you brought that up. It's easy to forget about the people.
Exactly. These are just tools to support us.
And it's the people who bring them to life.
So be mindful of those dynamics.
Encourage communication, listening, respect.
Create psychological safety.
Exactly, and celebrate successes.
It's about a positive environment.
Well said. Now, what about applying these outside of work?
That's a great point. They can be useful in our personal lives, too.
Absolutely. Think about family decisions.
Like planning a vacation.
Exactly. DACI can help streamline things.
So everyone feels heard.
Absolutely. Now, let's consider RASCI, say, for a neighborhood cleanup.
Someone coordinates logistics. That's responsible.
The neighborhood association president could be accountable.
Support could be volunteers.
People with gardening expertise can be consulted.
And everyone is kept informed.
By using RASCI, you create structure and community.
Exactly. So they're not just for business.
Absolutely. They're about clear communication and shared responsibility.
Which is so important today.
They help us make sense of things and make good decisions.
Well said. Now, try using them this week.
It doesn't have to be big, start small.
And let us know how it goes.
Now, before we move on, let's appreciate these frameworks.
What do you mean?
It's amazing how simple concepts can have such a big impact.
Defined roles and communication can make all the difference.
It's about being intentional.
And it's not just about the outcome, but the process too.
Right. It's about being thoughtful.
Collaboration, ownership, good ideas.
And ultimately, it makes us better at everything.
So remember DACI and RASCI.
They bring order to the chaos.
Now, what happens if someone isn't fulfilling their role?
That's a great question. It happens.
Right, there can be resistance.
How do we handle that?
Understand the root cause. Is it lack of understanding, personality conflict, or disagreement with the framework?
Once you understand, you can address it.
Maybe provide training, mediate a conflict, or have an open conversation.
Remember, it's not about punishment.
Right.
It's about support.
So offer support first.
And if it's still not working, maybe a different role or the framework isn't right for them.
Balance accountability and empathy.
Exactly. Now, let's talk about how these frameworks evolve.
What do you mean?
Well, they're not static. They change as we learn.
And as work changes.
Exactly. What trends are you seeing?
One is greater flexibility.
We talked about this, but it's important.
Organizations are becoming more agile.
Exactly. Command and control is less effective.
Agile is becoming the norm.
And these frameworks can support that.
They're guides, not rules.
Another trend is transparency and accountability.
Organizations need to be more open.
And these frameworks help with that.
It builds trust.
Exactly. And finally, integration with technology.
What do you mean?
More tools are supporting decision-making.
And we can integrate these frameworks with them.
Exactly. Technology enhances the human element.
So explore the tools available.
Now, more pitfalls to avoid. One is not defining the decision clearly.
Right, jumping into roles without defining the problem.
Exactly. It leads to confusion and bad outcomes.
So first, define the goal, the desired outcome.
Exactly. Then think about how DACI or RASCI can help.
Another pitfall is not involving the right people.
Right. It's easy to just involve the usual people.
But that can limit perspectives.
Yeah, exactly. Think broadly.
And create a safe environment for sharing.
Exactly. Another one is being too rigid.
Right. It's a tool, not a rule.
Exactly. Be flexible, adapt.
Find what works.
Absolutely. And remember, the goal is a good decision.
Well said. Now, what about documenting the process?
Why is that important?
It creates a record for reference, for transparency, and for learning.
Right. It provides clarity and accountability.
And we can learn from past decisions.
Continuous improvement.
Exactly. So document everything.
Now let's think about the broader implications of these frameworks.
I can shape our work culture.
I agree. They can foster collaboration.
How so?
They give everyone ownership and accountability.
It's about working together, not just following orders.
And it encourages people to contribute.
It creates transparency and trust.
Right, leading to greater engagement.
So they build stronger teams.
And that extends beyond work, too.
So whether you're at work, with family, or in your community, remember these frameworks.
They help us make decisions and work together.
Now, what about quick decision-making, like in a crisis?
That's a great point. You might not have time for a full process.
So how do we balance speed and structure?
Recognize that these frameworks are adaptable.
Right, streamline the process, but don't abandon the principles.
Exactly. Maintain clarity even under pressure.
Avoid confusion.
Exactly. So adapt, but don't abandon the core principles.
Now let's talk about leadership development.
Ah, that's crucial. These frameworks develop leadership skills.
How so?
They allow people to try different roles and develop new skills.
So they can step up and lead.
Exactly. It creates a pipeline of future leaders.
So use DACI and RASCI for development.
Now, key takeaways.
DACI and RASCI are powerful tools for clarity and structure.
They streamline communication, foster accountability, and encourage collaboration.
Use them wisely, adapt them.
Experiment and find what works.
And strong leadership and clear communication are key.
We're going to look ahead and explore what the future holds for DACI and RASCI.
This is where it gets really interesting because these frameworks, they aren't static, they're evolving.
That's right. They're adapting to how we work, technology, even how we interact as teams.
One trend I'm seeing is a move towards even greater flexibility and agility in how they're applied.
I can definitely see that. As organizations embrace more agile ways of working, those decision-making frameworks need to keep up.
Exactly. It's not about rigidly sticking to the matrix. It's about understanding the spirit of DACI and RASCI, using those principles.
So less filling in the boxes and more about understanding the spirit of it.
Precisely. It's about empowering teams, using their judgment, and adapting those frameworks to fit their context.
Another trend, technology integration into these frameworks.
Ooh, that's a fascinating one. Imagine software that helps you visualize your DACI or RASCI matrix, tracks progress, maybe even automates some tasks. Now that would be a game changer.
And with AI, we might even see AI-powered tools that can analyze data, identify bottlenecks, and even suggest roles and responsibilities, all based on the project.
Wow, that's pretty incredible. So the future of DACI and RASCI is all about leveraging technology.
Absolutely. But we have to remember technology is a tool. It's the human element that's really at the heart of these frameworks.
That's so true. Technology can enhance and support the process, but it doesn't replace good communication, strong relationships, and a shared commitment to those decisions.
Exactly. It's about people working together, and these frameworks provide that structure and language to facilitate that collaboration.
So as you look ahead, think about the future of decision-making in your organization. Remember DACI and RASCI.
Embrace the flexibility, explore that technology, and most importantly, don't lose sight of the human element.
Foster that collaboration, that trust, that respect, and you'll be making decisions that drive success and create a positive work environment.
And that's a wrap on episode 3 of the Beyond Practice podcast.
Big thanks to Jason for his amazing work behind the scenes.
You're the best, Jason.
Until next time, keep leading beyond practice.